We aren't really getting much information out of this camera, but you'll notice that when Chica moves into this camera with Freddy, the sprite within the camera changes. It isn't luck-based which one you'll see either. If Chica and Freddy are both in camera 4B, the game will always show Chica's sprite, and we can use this to our advantage. If we look at a graph of Chica's movement throughout the building, you'll notice that in order to reach our door, she always has to pass through camera 4B. So until we see Chica in camera 4B, we have no reason to ever check the right door for her. This not only saves power, as we're using the lights half as much, but it also allows us to be much more consistent with Bonnie, who is easily reactable within 1.6 seconds so long as we're already on his side. With this new strategy, it wasn't much longer until I was able to complete 420 at 3 times speed, and 4 times speed. Things were going very well with this strategy, and it was clear that all the speed I had built up from playing much more difficult max modes was paying off. But I was about to run into a complete brick wall when I increased the multiplier to 5 times speed. At 5 times speed, Bonnie and Chica now only give you 1 second upon reaching the door to close it on them. And I was starting to wonder if this was the limit for 420 mode. 1 second is not a lot of time, especially if Bonnie and Chica happen to enter the door blind spot when you're in the cameras. And if they happen to appear at the same time, there's pretty much nothing you can do.
He could only have gotten that idea.
যাও বাবাকে বলে আসো
What do I tell him? No egg.
No.
No egg hen. How will there be egg if you use all the egg?
Yeah. Hello, hi. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you very much.
কেজি আমের আছে এই মাসে
আনছে কেন 60 কেজি?
বলছে যে তোমার রুমে নিয়ে যেতে ওই যে ওগুলো আছে না ব্ল্যাঙ্কেটের ওই যে
Yeah, from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Making the mode pretty RNG
From Benjamin. He could only have gotten that idea from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Making the mode pretty RNG based at this speed, I kept trying and kept failing at 5 times speed. If this ended up being possible, it was definitely my limit for a legitimate 420 win. However, FNAF games are pretty glitchy, and I was wondering if there were any glitches that we can use to possibly increase this multiplier even higher. Put a pin in that 5 times multiplier for a legitimate completion, as we'll come back to that later. Let's see how high we can push FNAF 1 with glitches. There are only 2 main glitches that I think would have any impact on FNAF 1, and they both have to do with Foxy. It's been known for a while now that messing with the frame rate of the game has some weird interactions with Foxy. Once he leaves Parrot's Cove, lower frame rates cause him to move slower, and with low enough frame rates allow you to beat the night while doing nothing at all. We are messing with the speed of the game here, but Cheat Engine's speed hack ensures that both normal timers and frame counters work as intended, so there's nothing for us to exploit here. This leaves the only other major glitch in FNAF 1, the sprite overwrite glitch.
Hi, guys.
Or as it's more widely referred to, the Foxy
Welcome to our
glitch.
live.
This is probably
Please
the
subscribe.
most frequently covered glitch on my channel next to the FGP glitch in FNAF 3. And I'm sure you're all tired of hearing me explain it, so I'm gonna keep it brief this time. The sprite overwrite glitch basically allows you to kill Foxy using the door lights and puts the game into a weird state. The way we do this is through coordinating Foxy's arrival at the door with the door opening through a tight timing window. Essentially, when the door is opening or closing and Foxy arrives at the office, he's always going to wait for the door to finish its transition between open and close before performing the expected action. This means that if the door is currently in the opening state, Foxy is going to wait to enter it until it's fully open. But if you press the door lights in the short window when Foxy is at the door, but not yet in the office, his sprite gets overwritten by the lights. After Foxy is overwritten, the game still thinks you're in Foxy's jump scare animation, so you aren't able to use the cameras at all. And since Foxy is no longer present, and Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy all require a camera flip to jump scare you, there's no one left to check you for just sitting in the office for the remainder of the night. This glitch has proven particularly useful in videos where I've beaten multiple FNAF games at the same time, as it allows me to pretty much eliminate FNAF 1 at the beginning of each night at the cost of performing a trick that's pretty precise. When I was first conceptualizing how I'd tackle FNAF 1 in this challenge though, I didn't think the sprite overwrite glitch would be of much use. The window to hit the glitch was already pretty precise at normal speed, so increasing the speed even more would just make the trick even harder to hit. But if it's still possible at speeds higher than our legitimate run, it would be worthwhile. If I managed to hit this glitch at a high speed, I wanted it to be the only time that I had to hit it, so I had to make sure that I found the theoretical fastest possible speed that I could hit the glitch on, then try actual attempts. There's only 3 clicks required to perform the glitch: selecting the hall camera to get Foxy running, opening the door, and turning on the light. I figured that the bottleneck here would be the distance my cursor has to travel between clicks 1 and 2, since the gap between the west hall and the left door button is much larger than the gap between the left door button and the left right button. This means that if I was able to get the door open in time and get jump scared by Foxy, that multiplier was likely possible. I kept climbing multipliers, and it turns out, even though this glitch is very fast and precise, it's still possible on higher multipliers than our legitimate threshold. Eventually, I reached 8 times, and this seemed to be a wall. We were now 2 times faster than our legitimate record, and man, hitting this glitch was proving to be pretty difficult. I was able to get the door open in time for Foxy to enter, but I just wasn't able to click the light fast enough to initiate the glitch and kill Foxy. Every time, I'd be too late, and Foxy would enter. I realized that the problem wasn't even my mouse speed, as I was over the light button in time every time. It was the fact that I just couldn't click fast enough. There's a short delay from when the door opens to when the light becomes clickable, and at 8 times speed, this only gives us a 2-frame window to go from clicking the door button to clicking the light. I needed a method to click faster, but also keep good enough aim so that I can still flick up to the door button from the west hall and open it in time for Foxy. Jitter clicking, or flexing your forearm to jitter the left mouse button, was way too unstable to make this work, but I was able to see some promising results with butterfly clicking. Butterfly clicking involves alternating clicks between your index mouse button was way too unstable to make this work, but I was able to see some promising results with butterfly clicking. Butterfly clicking involves alternating clicks between your index and middle finger instead of just clicking with one finger, resulting in a higher click speed. An additional benefit to butterfly clicking, though, is that you retain your stability in your palm, making it especially useful for situations in which you need to track a target while maintaining a high clicks per second. This is why almost every 1.8 Minecraft PvP player uses this clicking method as opposed to jittering. In my case, I was able to get some pretty close attempts by just using my index finger to open the door, then hitting the light right after with my middle finger. I had the speed, now I just needed to hit the window. Oh, yes! Yes, yes, yes! Yo! Holy shit! That's crazy! Alright, that was 8 times. That'll be it, that'll be the cutoff. That's crazy! Yes, that's so cool, dude. With enough trial and error, we've now raised the FNAF 1 420 multiplier up to 8 times speed. But I couldn't help but feel like there was more. 8 is a bit of a weird multiplier to end on, and personally, I'd much rather it be a multiple of 5. They're just cleaner. And it turns out 10 times speed might in fact be possible. Earlier, I said the window to hit the glitch was 2 frames at 8 times speed, so I wondered what the theoretical highest speed was that still offered a frame where the light button was actionable and the door was still in its transition period of going from closed to open. To make this a bit easier to visualize, I added a number at the top left corner to represent the state of the door, with each value corresponding to a different state the door can be in. I then used an auto clicker to ensure that the light would turn on at the first possible frame that it could. If the light turns on while the door is still in state 4, its transition state, that means that it's theoretically possible. And sure enough, at 10 times speed, we have our frame, and I began attempts. 10 times speed was noticeably harder than 8 times. So much harder that I felt like I needed to be more efficient with my attempts. I was dying so much trying to hit this frame perfect click that I was wasting the majority of my sessions waiting for the game over animation to end so I could get back in the night. So I just modified the game a bit to reset to the start of the night on a jump scare. That way I could throw way more attempts at the night instead of having to wait through death screens. At this high of a speed, my aim had to get a lot better to consistently reach the door button in time. And after I managed to do that enough times in a row, I had to add in the tiniest possible delay between reaching the door button and opening the door. Then, on the very first frame that it was actionable, click the light to pull this off. Finally, dude. Holy shit. That took me an hour to do. Oh my god. Finally, bro. There we go. 420 mode. And with that, we have reached what I believe to be FNAF 1's max mode speed up barrier at 10 times speed. Beyond this speed, at least from my testing, it seemed like there weren't any actionable frames to click the light in order to initiate the Foxy glitch. But if you guys think you found any strats, or have managed to pull off this glitch on any higher speeds, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, please consider subscribing to both this channel and my second one. It helps me out more than anything else and allows me to keep making these videos for you guys. It's completely free, but of course, only do so if you're enjoying the video thus far. Now, let's get back to it. We found FNAF 1's true limit using glitches, but I was still struggling to figure out where the legitimate limit was. It would be really cool to have both be on multiples of 5, a 5 times multiplier legitimately, and a 10 times multiplier with the use of glitches. But man, trying to pull off 420 at 5 times speed glitchless was an absolute RNG nightmare. As I said before, the main issue with 420 mode at this speed is Bonnie and Chica arriving at your doors at the same time. If this happens, there is literally nothing you can do. So, the first step to attempting this was to figure out how to minimize those situations where we have to gamble on Bonnie or Chica not arriving at the doors at the same time. I decided the best way of doing this would be to do some field research and figure out how often Bonnie and Chica would be attacking our doors throughout an average night. So I coded in both Bonnie and Chica's movement paths into a simulation using C++. Once their paths were mapped out, I took the total night length in seconds and divided it by Bonnie and Chica's movement intervals to get the total number of movements for a night. Once that was done, I just had to record the amount of times Bonnie and Chica arrived at the doors per night, then average them across all simulated nights. With the program complete, I ran the program over 100 million simulated nights, and the results were actually pretty interesting. Despite both Bonnie and Chica being set to 20 AI, Bonnie on average would arrive at the left door approximately 16 times per night, while Chica would only arrive at the right door 8 times per night, half as frequent as Bonnie. Now, why is Chica so much less frequent than Bonnie? Well, once you look at their movement paths expressed as directed graphs, it makes a bit more sense. In order to reach the door, Bonnie can choose to either go through
বাবা একটু
camera
কমন
3
সেন্স
or
কম
camera 2.
আমাকে যতবারই বলিস বাবা
Bonnie has one camera she can reach the door from, camera 4B. So what does this mean for our strategy? Finally, it was over. I know for how long I was playing this, my reaction was a little bit underwhelming, but hey, my girlfriend just came in the room in a cosplay for the Digital Circus movie, and all I'm saying, I got my priorities straight, you know what I mean? Now, since I had finally for the Digital Circus, it was a little bit underwhelming, but hey, my girlfriend just came in the room in a cosplay for the Digital Circus movie, and all I'm saying, I got my priorities straight, you know what I mean? Now, since I had finally gotten a successful run, I was really curious as to how crazy the RNG needed to be in this run in order for it to result in a win. Remember that I have always had bad luck in situations that mattered the most. So let's see how good my luck was here. The main RNG factors to examine here have to do with Chica. We want to know the chances of both her attack frequency and the chances that she leaves me alone when I happen to gamble on Bonnie being here instead of her. In this run, Chica showed up in camera 4B a total of 13 times, with 4 of those times being right after a Bonnie attack, allowing us to successfully block her. If we change Chica's target in the FNAF 1 simulation to camera 4B instead of the right door, we see the chance of Chica reaching camera 4B 13 times or less throughout an entire night is around 24%. Then we need to factor in Chica deciding to leave me alone during 9 of the 13 attacks where we had to risk death to prioritize Bonnie, which comes out to a 14% chance. Multiplying those odds together and we get a full night RNG of about 1 in 30, which honestly seems pretty low for the amount of attempts that I had to throw at this challenge. Then again though, Foxy did miraculously hit the door while we had it closed for a Bonnie attack, so I'm sure that was pretty rare and added a good bit of RNG to our win. Regardless, I was happy that I could finally put FNAF 1 to rest, ending on 2 clean multiples of 5 for total speed up, with 420 being possible at 5 times speed glitchless and 10 times speed with glitches. Now we can move on to our next game, FNAF 2. Coming off of FNAF 1, I was a bit scared for FNAF 2, and as you'll come to see, that was more than justified. As many of you may know, 1020 mode in FNAF 2 has had arguably the most strategy development out of all the mainline max modes. It's gone from one of the hardest challenges in the games to one of the most consistent and easiest. The only problem with that is that all the consistency in FNAF 2's modern strategies comes from the usage of external timers to track exactly where you are within the night. In many of these strategies, you only have a split-second window to execute a movement in order to maintain the cycle, and failure to do so will either result in a straight-up death or slowly bleeding progress with the puppet and the music box. There are many strategies for 1020 mode, probably more than any of the other vanilla max modes, but currently the most optimized and, in general, best strategy for 1020 mode is the Braden strat. This strategy finds a good balance between skill and RNG, with it heavily reducing lethal RNG while not requiring too much skill. This strategy takes advantage of a cool discovery with the flashlight in FNAF 2, that being you can actually flash Foxy in the hallway through a blackout if you buffer the flashlight input while you're still in the cameras. It's important to be wary of exactly when to do this though. This strategy hinges on you perfectly balancing 2 characters, Foxy and Golden Freddy. Both characters are tied to 5-second intervals. Golden Freddy has an AI and 20 chance to spawn every 5-second interval during the cameras, and though Foxy's kill timer counts up by 1 every second, his kill equation is only checked on every 5-second interval, meaning flashing him before a 5-second interval will refresh his kill timer and prevent him from entering his kill state. Golden Freddy will jump scare us if we use the flashlight anytime that he spawned in, so we have to ensure that we never have the cameras up over a 5-second interval no matter what, since we're going to be flashing on the first available frame once the cameras are dropped in order to flash through the blackout. This allows you to wind the music box for much longer in comparison to other strategies, nearly 5 full seconds. And because of that, you now have extra time to implement another technique, Toy Bonnie stalling. Toy Bonnie is the only animatronic in FNAF 2 that can end our runs because of luck. However, he can't enter the vent while the vent light is on. So, leaving the vent light on over his possible entry times stalls him and reduces the total number of Toy Bonnie occurrences throughout the night. This sounds great so far. FNAF 1 was an absolute nightmare with RNG, and if we can utilize a strategy that is nearly 99% skill-based, it shouldn't be too difficult to climb the speed ladder. Though, there was a bit of a problem. Since all these strategies require a timer in order to pull off, how how are we going to get the timer to sync up with our game? At first I thought I would have to retrain myself to internally multiply whatever the current time is on my timer whenever I read it. So an interval that was over 2.5 on my timer was actually a 5.0 interval at 2 times speed, and so on. But there was a much easier solution to this. Though Cheat Engine is mostly used for games, you can speed hack pretty much anything with it. Cheat Engine can recognize every single executable that is currently running on your computer, including itself. So if you want, you can even have Cheat Engine speed hack itself. This doesn't do anything, but hey, it's neat. Anyway, this is important to us because now we can just have 2 instances of Cheat Engine open, one that's attached to our game and one that's attached to our timer. As long as we set them both to the same multiplier, we'll have an equally sped up timer to match our sped up game. With this new discovery, it was on to 1020 mode, and I figured I'd start off the same way that I did in FNAF 1, 2 times speed. Almost immediately as I started 1020 mode on 2 times speed, I realized that FNAF 2 was going to be a lot more difficult, skill-wise at least, compared to FNAF 1. Every single strategy on FNAF 2 follows a simple loop. You wait for a few seconds, then execute a short burst of inputs, then go back to waiting and repeat. For example, in the Brady strat, you wind the music box for around 4 seconds, then once your timer is half a second away from a 5-second interval, you have to buffer the flashlight with control, flick off of the music box button to drop the cameras,
প্রথমে
move the mouse
ফটফট করে
up
মানুষ
and down
লাইক করে
again
দিল
as
পরে
fast
দেখা
as
যায় লাইক
possible to put on the mask, then do
একজন
the
টেস্ট করে
blackout.
লাইক
All of these
করছে
inputs are executed one after another extremely
এখনো
quickly,
লাইক দেয়
and the more we increase the speed of the night, the smaller the execution window will become. Thankfully, at 2 times speed, this is still pretty manageable, and within a few tries, I was able to get a win. The real challenge began once we moved up to 3 times speed. Oh man, 3 times speed. If 5 times speed was the hard wall for FNAF 1, 3 times speed is the respective wall for FNAF 2. It's got all the same things: carpal tunnel inducing movements, insanely precise timings, and a whole bunch of RNG. The only difference is, skill-wise, it's way harder. I'm just gonna play what roughly 7 seconds of gameplay looks like at 3 times speed. It's pretty funny to watch. Like FNAF 1, at this level of speed, there are some aspects of our strategy that just fall apart. The first problem that I immediately noticed was how fast that I would bleed music box progress between cycles. You see, in the Brayden strat, the closer you can cut your camera flips to Foxy's interval, the more music box wind time you'll get per cycle. But as our game speed gets faster and faster, it's harder and harder to hit these windows, not only because our timer is moving so fast, but more so that I physically just can't move my arm as quickly as I would like to when flicking to put on the cameras and mask, or pull up the cameras